Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about Legend of Keepers. It's a game that was in early access for a long time, but I only recently discovered it because it got its full release on PC, Switch, and Stadia about a week or two ago. And I must say, I can't believe there are not more people playing and talking about this game because I can't seem to get enough of it. I hope that it gets more recognition and that the big gaming outlets start talking about it at some point because it's a really good game and deserves to have a lot more people talking about it. I love the art style, I love the character models, the animations are great, I really like the music. I want a soundtrack release for this game. It's a surprisingly synthwave soundtrack, which I really didn't expect for a medieval fantasy setting. But what is Legend of Keepers? It's a dungeon keeper style game where you play as one of the three main characters who runs a dungeon. The game has a sense of humor about it, acting like you're a store manager who has to manage a set of employees and fear your corporate overlords should you fail. The employees you're managing are the monsters and creatures you use to fight incoming heroes and adventurers who are invading your dungeon to try to take your gold. In dungeon crawlers, obviously, you're the hero going in trying to find loot and gold, but this game flips that on its head. There are elements of tower defense and turn-based RPG combat, and some roguelike elements as well. You're managing your way through several acts or missions that each increase in difficulty as you level your dungeon master and gain promotions. There is a timeline of events to work through in each act, with you selecting what you want to do from a series of available activities. One week you may use some gold to buy some level ups for your monsters to make them stronger in the next defense phase. The next week you may choose to work out your dungeon keeper to make him more powerful. The week after that you may buy a new monster for your team, or deal with a random event that popped up that week. And that event may reward you in some interesting way. And then finally there are the weeks with a defense phase. During these phases you have several rooms to set traps or assign your monsters to defensive positions, and then the heroes enter and have to battle through each room for a chance to challenge the dungeon master so they can steal your gold. And when the heroes enter the rooms where you've assigned monsters, you get to take control for turn-based battles. You can place 3 monsters in these rooms, and you have to be fairly strategic about whether you place them in the front line, back line, or in the middle, and how you choose their placement will depend on the monster's stats and abilities. And don't be surprised if the monsters die, and die repeatedly. In most cases, they're no match for the adventurers coming into the dungeon, but that's why you as the dungeon master have 2 rooms to place monsters, 2 rooms to place traps, and a few other tricks up your sleeve to accumulate enough damage on the adventurers to knock them out before they can steal your gold. And that's just the setup in the early going. As you continue to advance through each act, the number of rooms and the available assets you have to stop the adventurers continues to expand. But of course, as your arsenal of monsters and traps expands, the heroes become more powerful. That's why you have to play your cards right during the weeks leading up to each defense phase. That includes letting some of your monsters rest every now and then, especially if they've been knocked out a few times already. Every monster has a segmented bar of motivation that drops as they get knocked out during defense phases. It turns out getting killed and reanimated takes its toll after a while. So on top of leveling them when you can and managing their placement during defense, you'll need to have enough monsters to defend your gold even while some sit out to regain some motivation. During a defense phase, you also get to choose whether to take on an easier group of adventurers, a set of veteran adventurers, or some tougher heroes, or even a group of champions. Each of these options will grant you different rewards. You may get more gold to spend on upgrades depending on which you choose. Defending against adventurers may reward you with a new monster for your group, but defending against some veterans may give you a useful artifact that gives you some sort of interesting bonus. Now, if you happen to fail to protect your gold against the invaders, that's where the roguelike elements comes in. You'll lose the monsters you built up and the artifacts you collected, and you'll have to start the act over from the beginning at week 1. However, you do get to keep experience gained, which will level up your dungeon master, allowing you to put points into a skill tree-like set of talents that make them more powerful for the next run. Thankfully, you do not lose progress from act to act if you fail, meaning you can fail on Act 3 for example without having to go back and play through Acts 1 and 2 for another shot at it. Now it may sound like there's a lot going on, almost to the point where you might worry that the turn-based battle system ends up feeling like an afterthought, but that is not the case here. The turn-based battles were definitely thoughtfully made. Every character has a unique set of abilities that does different types of damage and works together with other characters' abilities, so you'll want to be mindful of how you place each monster and which attacks you use and in which order. About my only complaint here is that you don't get to preview the heroes you're up against before starting the battle, meaning the game puts you in a position in which you may not be able to properly plan out your best possible defensive positions. For instance, say I'm going up against a hero who hits with ice-based abilities and he's weak to air or fire-based abilities. Well, I may have just put my strong fire-based attacker on the sideline to rest, and I may have planned on using a character I thought would be a frontline tank in Room 1, but it turns out he's a bit weak against ice abilities, and that means I may have to put up a different, weaker character there instead because I didn't know what I was going up against. This is where, generally speaking, having a lot of monsters at your disposal and not getting into a rut where you rely too heavily on just a few monsters ends up being pretty helpful. And the character designs and animations here are excellent. There's a real weightiness, a real punchiness to each attack. You almost feel each attack landing. The sound effects and visuals here are great. And there's a lot of potential for additional content with this type of game. They could add another dungeon master and a series of missions to complete. They could add more monsters to use in battle. They could add more artifacts. There's a lot of potential room to grow and expand this game, but I already love it. It's the kind of game that if limited run games or strictly limited games did a physical collector's edition release for the Switch or next gen consoles, I would pre-order that as soon as it was announced. Although as much as I might like to have a physical copy of the game on console, I think it's the kind of game that's better played with a mouse. There is controller support and I did give it a try. It's certainly playable with a controller if that's how you want to play, but it's much quicker and easier to hover over things with your mouse to get a readout of all the stats and information you need before making a decision. And that's generally less pleasant to do using a D-pad on a controller. But if you're used to using a controller, you can definitely do that. Anyway, like I said, I can't get enough of Legend of Keepers. I think it's a fantastic game. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's the perfect kind of game to play in short bursts if you're like me and don't always have a lot of time to play. You can just do some management, get through a couple of weeks, or do a round of battle and then exit the game and pick it back up later. But that's going to do it for this one. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button for more videos, and let me know if you've been playing this game in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Congrats! You've come right on time to your funeral!